Hey, it's Monday night. It's another week. Another week started. I'm feeling all right. I'm definitely still depressed, but I'm feeling a little more uh, like I'm gonna be able to find my way out of it eventually. Worked on the financial paperwork some today, and I actually got a surprising amount of it finished in a very short amount of time. So I think I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna get it done by Friday. Even though the next couple of days I'm gonna be real busy. I had a meeting with Sarah, the counselor, today, and I want to kind of tell you guys what we talked about. And then I also had a discussion with Claude that I think might be worth talking about as well. So, with Sarah, you know how I talked about it being like a glob of sadness last night. We kind of talked about that. Sarah and I kind of talked about that. And so we said a few things today. One of them being that the quantity and the quality of interactions with people seem to be really important to me right now, both quality and quantity. So I should put more effort into doing things with people, especially informally. And tomorrow there's a guy at work. His name is Cassidy. I've met him a couple of times, and he asked me if I wanted to have lunch with him tomorrow. So we're gonna have lunch tomorrow, which is cool. I'll say this. I'm a little worried that Cassidy thinks I'm gay and that he's asking me out like in a quasi-romantic sense. But I don't know. And I'm prepared to tell him that that I'd like to make friends at work, but that I'm yeah, you know, what I've got going on. I'm prepared to tell him everything, whatever, and just be very straightforward about it. So I think it's going to be all right either way. Plus, it could just be like I'm fairly friendly, and maybe he's trying to make friends at work too, which would be perfect. So I'm going to have lunch with him tomorrow. It's going to be great. No matter what goes on, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a good lunch. All right. So, quality and quantity of interactions with people are both very important to me right now. And we talked about deriving purpose, right? And Sarah said a couple of things there. She said that I talked about sleep. And I'm not sleeping well. It's not necessarily that I lay in bed for a long time unable to sleep. It's more like I put off going to bed until way too late. Right now, for example, it is 10:36, which is not super late, but it's pretty late. And like the last few nights, I've been staying up till midnight or later. And a part of that is that I am afraid of laying in bed being unable to sleep. I am afraid of it. So I just put off going to bed until I'm like extremely tired. And when I'm extremely tired and confident that I'm going to fall asleep, that's when I go to bed. So in an effort to help with that, she said I should try writing down writing down things about connections from the day, or things that made me feel purposeful throughout the day. I should write them down, and I should also write down things about the next day, things that I'm looking forward to, things that connections that I intend to make in the next day, and things like that. And then that I should be sure to list, whatever small positive things, both about one day and about expectations for the next. So that way, I don't have to worry about laying in bed, because if I'm laying in bed and I think everything is bad, then I can look at how the day went. I can look at the positive things from the day and the positive expectations for tomorrow. Or if I am laying in bed and I feel alone, I can look at the connections from the day and the connections I expect to have the next day. And in that case, even if I am alone at the moment, it's a blip in between two times of connection. And if I am laying in bed, wondering what the point of any of it is, I can look at the things that made me feel purposeful from the day, and the things that I hope will make me feel purposeful the next day. And I can say, yeah, my life does have purpose in it, and here's the evidence. So I think I'm gonna make more of an effort to I'd like to write them down, but I also want to make that part of this probably every night, talking about those things. In addition to lunch with Cassidy tomorrow, I also have an extended band practice from like 4 to 9, super long, tomorrow. So I'll be spending a lot of time with people. And kind of a fun, informal setting with the band, even though I do work with them. And I think I've talked about it before, that I started this, called it Coffee Roulette, where it randomly selects somebody. It's a Google sheet where each week it randomly selects somebody from marketing. And today I coded it up with Claude, so that on Mondays it will grab a random person, find time where we're both available on both of our calendars, and send them a message inviting them to just have coffee with me and talk for a little bit. So I've got the second one of those, the first one that Claude actually wrote everything, the AI actually did all the work for, tomorrow with someone named Andy. So hopefully I'll have coffee with a person named Andy, and it'll just be like a nice 30-minute talk about whatever. So there's a lot of connection things that I'm looking forward to tomorrow. That was the important part of the story. In terms of getting through the days, this is just kind of turning into a list of things for me to do, but I think it's good. I think it's good to go through it as a list. I just have a list of things that I am doing to help with my recovery, because that's what this is all about, right? Documenting. If this is a video journal about everything that I'm going through, and what I actually do, what do I actually go through, and what do I actually do to get through it, and hopefully to come out on the other side. I was thinking of a adjective there, but I think just coming out on the other side maybe is goal enough. So in terms of getting through the day, what Sarah said was I should just make an effort to be present and try to contribute to the next moment. Not to, you don't always have to contribute to every moment of the future. You can just contribute to the next moment. Does that make sense? And another thing that we talked about is how my vision of myself has changed since being separated from Gabby. And I thought about it for a long time, and I said I don't have a strong definition of my vision of myself, but I think I can see what the change is, even if I don't have the definition, the before and after, interpretations of myself. I think I can see the change, and I don't think the change is in who I am or who I see myself as. I think the change is that a lot of parts of my identity were being fulfilled through Gabby, and now they have nowhere to go. For example, I very, very deeply caring about people, and about supporting people, and about being there for them in whatever way they need me to be. It is a deep core part of my identity, is that I am a person who does that. And all of that for years now has been the only way that I've really expressed that for years has been through Gabby, being there for Gabby, supporting Gabby, doing whatever it takes to whatever she needs, being there for her in every possible way. And now without her, there's not really anybody. There's no way for me to fulfill that role. There's nobody that I can be there for in that way. And so, what I talked about with Sarah was that I don't think the way that I see myself has changed, but I think that there are very important parts of my identity that no longer have anywhere to go. And so she said it would be a good exercise this week for me to define roles that Gabby allowed me to fulfill. And then once I can see those roles, I can find other ways to express them. So, for example, being really supportive of people, I think I can help with that by putting more time and effort into, a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, mostly new data scientists who are having a hard time starting their careers because it is crazy hard to start a data science career. So a lot of them reach out to me, and I think maybe if I think I could express the part of me that wants to be very supportive of people. I think I could express that by putting more time and effort into helping that group or people from that group. It's not that I don't already put a lot of time and effort. I never say no to people. I do informational interviews all the time, and I talk to hiring managers, and I do, whatever people, whatever I can think of that I think will help. But I think I could put more time into it through things that I'm already doing, like writing my book, continuing to write that, working on a workbook, making more LinkedIn posts maybe that are helpful and targeted at those people. So that's one way in which I can express an important part of my identity that I've sort of lost in a way without Gabby, but a new way of expressing that part of my identity. So now let me tell you about Claude, right? And I said yesterday or the day before or whenever that I talk to Claude about this kind of stuff, but I cannot recommend that anybody else do it because AI psychosis is very real and it is very problematic. And if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't understand how AI parses your input and generates its output, then you can be very easily led down a path that you don't want to go down. A path that is not going to be good for you, a path that's going to be very, very bad for you and the people around you. It can be very awful, and I absolutely do not recommend that anybody talk to AI the way that I do. But I do it, okay? And once again, I do it because I've spent years studying how this stuff works, and I've written articles about how it works, and I've read articles about how it works, and I can write out the math that the AI is doing. Maybe not all of it, but yeah, I do it, and I'm very careful with my language, and I'm very careful with how I interpret what it says back to me. So today I was talking to Claude about what's it about? It's about the existential crisis, right? Yeah. It's about existential crisis and how I just can't figure it out. Okay, what we were really talking about, how we really started was the difference between why questions and what questions. And I had read earlier some advice online that was it was basically try not to ask why questions and instead ask what questions. And they were like, why is this happening versus what can I do about this? Does that make sense? So the goal, I believe, of the thing that I read was to get people to focus more on the present, on what they can control. Why questions tend to be in the past or in the future, and what questions, at least as laid out in the article, are about the present. And so that was kind of the gist of it. And but I was talking to Claude, and I was saying that I think that's kind of nonsense. Like, I can understand how it could help people that are really struggling. If you need to get through the day, I could see how that would help. But I think understanding how to change your circumstances, I think, very much relies on the why questions. Because if you don't have, I'm going to get pretty quantitative on you guys, okay? If you don't have a good model of the situation, then you cannot anticipate how your actions will affect the system. So that why question, the why questions are the ones that are going to inform your construction of your model of the situation, how you interpret what is happening. Okay, and if you can correctly interpret what is happening around you, if you can see what all the driving forces are and how it all fits together, then you can anticipate, if I do this, then this is what will probably happen throughout the rest of the system. And so it's those why questions that allow you to make meaningful changes. What questions can get you through a day? Why questions are the ones that allow you to make meaningful changes. This was my stance. This is what I was explaining to Claude. And Claude was like, Claude said that that's a pretty quantitative way of looking at things. That, you know, maybe my time spent in academia and in data science and causal inference is really informing that quite a bit. And then it talked about how, because we were talking about this in the context of my existential crisis, where there are times when I'm like, when I can't figure out what the hell the point is. And it said something about the difference between fitting a model to data, as in machine learning, and constructing a model from first principles, as in like physics or differential equations or some kinds of engineering. And I said that I thought it was interesting that I brought that up, because whenever I am doing machine learning projects, I tend to try to construct a model from first principles. And I usually can't, because the reason we're doing machine learning is because these models aren't really tractable from first principles. In any case, I'll go back and I'll try to actually work out the math by hand as much as possible for what am I actually trying to model here before I start reaching for machine learning or something to fill in the gaps. I usually construct it from first principles, and I'm sorry to get so deep into the woods there on that. It's not going to be important to my main point, so hopefully you're still listening. Okay, so I usually try to construct it from first principles and then fit it to the data. And what Claude said, and I thought was pretty insightful, is that you can't answer existential questions from first principles. Meaning, from first principles, it basically means you start with a theory and then you build up your model based on that theory. So the reason you can't answer the meaning of life from first principles is because nobody knows what the meaning of life is. So you can't, for thousands of years, this is what Claude said, for thousands of years, philosophers have been trying to solve the meaning of life. They've been trying to model it from first principles, and it hasn't even converged. Philosophers don't even agree on which direction to take. So there is no way to model it from first principles. The answer just doesn't exist. So the way that I go about building models, and yeah, sure, in a machine learning or data science way, but also just like how I envision the world runs the same way. I will take something from first principles, from theory, from my observation and logic and understanding of what's happening, and then I'll take that and fit it to what I have observed to what I have actually seen, which is exactly how I go about doing machine learning. Same thing. How I interact with the world and how I construct this stuff at work is the same. So Claude said that perhaps the reason I struggle so much with existentialism is because I'm trying to do the same thing, trying to solve it like I do, trying to model existence the same way I model everything else, starting with a theory or a set of reliable assumptions and then building it out from there. And you can't do that with the existential question. Because there is no theoretical answer. Nobody's ever found one. So what Claude recommended, which I also think is interesting, and it's interesting because you see a lot of data scientists that frankly aren't very good data scientists, or maybe they're just new, approaching problems this way, right? What Claude suggested was just put the data in a format that you understand and fit a model to it. Just throw a model at it. So in terms of the existential question, that would mean perhaps writing down what made you feel like your life had meaning that day. And then the next time you're worried about your life not having meaning, you can look back at the data, the things that you wrote down, and you can say, yeah, my life has meaning. Look at all this stuff I've written down. And then you don't have to answer the existential questions. You don't have to know what the meaning of life is for the data to show that your life has meaning. So that's what I talked to Claude about, and I thought I was surprised at how profound I thought its take on the question was. You don't have to start from first principles. You can just throw a model at it. Wow. So I'm going to try to keep that in mind whenever I'm sitting there wondering what the point of being alive is. I'm going to try to do something data-based rather than theory-based. And I will for sure report back to you guys how it goes. This has ended up being a pretty long video, and I'll see you tomorrow.